are trying to blockade our economy, our democracy.
We've heard it called a nationwide insurrection.
Yeah, but have you seen data that definitively proves that these mask mandates have worked?
Story of the day and over the weekend is Americans are officially done with COVID. This week, Democrats across the country loosened up their mandates, and people are starting to see a tide shift. We got a lot of that and also some updates on the Canadian Freedom Trucker convoy that is occupying Ottawa. Use that word ironically. You'll see why in a couple minutes. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go.
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world. Nobody in, nobody out. Except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for tuning in to Daily Caller Live on today. It is February 8th, the year of our Lord 2022. We're glad you're here. And the tide is starting to turn on COVID. Sorry, not starting to. It had started a year and a half ago. But it's official. The wave is now here. It is done. According to pretty much everyone. I got a really interesting piece from the Washington Post over the weekend that I want to bring to you right off the bat. Then we're going to talk about all of the more lockdowny, more mandatey states, including the state that I live in, California. Their governor's starting to read the room and go, okay, yeah, we should probably get rid of these. But a fascinating piece out of the Washington Post over the weekend that I wanted to bring you. Look, if you haven't already, click the little like button. It really helps us out. Click the little share button. Again, really helps us out. Stay on the air doing what we're doing. And also gets this out to more people because I know you have friends. You love them. You care about them. But they're super lockdowny, mandatey type people. They need to hear this. This is the thing that they need to hear. This is out of the Washington Post over the weekend. An article basically outlining what I just said. Americans are freaking done. The tide is not starting to turn. It is here. And Democrats across the country, ones that are governing states, are reacting harshly, knowing what's coming. There's a funny headline that I read earlier. Democrats are state to state looking to try and make people forget how tyrannical they were over the last couple of years. But again, sorry, this is from the Washington Post. Fatigued, frustrated, and frazzled by 5 surges over 2 years, some parts of the U.S. population have decided simply to live with coronavirus and move on. And with triple shot vaccine on board, or protection acquired from prior infection, which is again something the Washington Post wasn't saying just like a month ago. With protection acquired from prior infection, alongside case numbers falling precariously, polls show that numbers are increasing, that people are done with COVID. Track vaccine distribution by state. The Atlantic last month declared that some states are vaxxed and done. The Time magazine this week is exploring how COVID ends. It's on its cover of a hopeful portrait of the spiky red virus fading to black. Some municipalities and schools are shedding the mask mandates. Elected officials no longer even talking about conquering the virus, as President Biden did just 7 months ago. Remember, Joe Biden said, we're going to conquer the virus. Not to bore you with statistics here, but when there were 200,000 American COVID deaths, Joe Biden said, a sitting U.S. president that has presided over 200,000 U.S. American deaths should no longer be the president. That number has, of course, more than doubled while he's been president. Just keep that in mind. More people died in the same time frame, too. We don't even need to extend it because President Trump was president for, 8 months of the COVID pandemic? Joe Biden's been president for 13 months over the COVID pandemic. Even if you shorten Joe Biden's term to 8 months, more people died under the current president's 8 months than the former president's 8 months with COVID. So keep that in mind as you're going along with this sort of stuff. President Biden said just 7 months ago, in a short-lived glow of the vaccine rollout. Remember when the vaccine came out? No more masks. We're done with masks. And then like a month later, oh, we need to wear masks again, regardless of your vaccination status. A bipartisan group of governors told Biden last week at the White House that it's time to move away from the pandemic, in the words of Arkansas Governor Asha Hutchins. In a January Monmouth poll, 28% of Americans said they would never get out of the outbreak and return to normal, which is up from 9% in March of 2021. An Axios poll taken about the same time found that 61% believed that vaccines allowed them to return to a pre-COVID routine. And a KFF poll found that 77% of Americans believe most people will inevitably develop COVID-19 anyway, and that sentiment crosses party lines. Look, I think this is good news. We're going to keep talking about COVID and the hypocrisy on different sides and all that sort of stuff, but 77% of Americans believe that you're going to inevitably get it anyway, which would inherently mean that people are just like, we're done. This is officially it. The end started this weekend when the Washington Post said, all right, Americans are done. Both sides of the article, both sides of the aisle, across party lines, we're just done with this thing. And look, there are going to be people that are going to continue to wear masks everywhere they go, even in the shower. And there's nothing you can do to help those people. I think the branch COVIDians, as some people call them, are going to be America's new hoarders. There's going to be a TV show, I think there's going to be a reality TV show of hyper COVID awareness people. The COVID enthusiasts who wear masks at all times, no matter what. And I think we're going to watch that TV show like we watched the show Hoarders. It's going to be the same type of dynamic. But basically, the Washington Post is saying that Americans are done. That's absolutely it. And on the heels of that, Democrats hope voters forget about the COVID tyranny. Democrats across the country, governors, state houses, all are hoping that in the upcoming midterms that people forget about the tyranny during COVID. I hope they don't, but they're hoping they will. From the New York Times, from California to Connecticut, officials are announcing the ease of mask orders. Again, these are the most locked down states in the country. Connecticut will permit students and staff members to stop wearing masks in schools by no later than February 28th, after Governor Ned Lamont recommended Monday that the state mask mandate end on that date. Why they don't do it immediately, I don't actually know. His remarks came after a move by New Jersey governor officials earlier Monday that lift the state mask mandate for schools. We've got a phenomenal clip from the New Jersey governor on Jake Tapper's show. And I know a lot of people hear Jake Tapper's name and go, ah. Jake Tapper, in the last couple of months, has seemed to find his mojo again, whatever you want to call it. During the Trump years, he went crazy, like so many anchors, journalists, whatever you want to call them, did. Now he's doing some decently good reporting. He's also doing, I believe it's Jake Tapper that's doing nightly China is crazy and insane and horrible content every single day during the Olympics. So there's that. So we've got that fantastic clip coming up. But before I get to that, I got to tell you about inflation, right? Inflation is through the roof. Inflation went up 40% last year. It's 7% last year. Highest percentage raise in 40 years. Ronald Reagan was the last president that had to deal with this. And he said inflation is just like a mugger in the middle of the night. It'll take your money and not think twice about it. And also, the government craves high inflation. If you don't know this, the government has huge amounts of debt. We hit $30 trillion last week. The amount of debt that the government has is insurmountable. So if inflation is high, that lessens their burden of debt and they can spend more money without really even thinking about it. So how do you protect yourself against inflation? Because inflation is effectively stealing your savings. Well, you can invest in gold. And our friends at Birch Gold can tell you how to do that. If you have an IRA, if you have a 401k, you can roll those into a gold-backed IRA with our friends at Birch Gold and protect your savings and your family's financial future. Gold has been the best way to protect against inflation, and it hasn't stopped now. So Protect yourself by texting JOBOB to 989898. That's Jobob to 989898. And our friends at Birch Gold will send you no risk, no obligation, free packet that tells you everything you need to know about protecting your savings. Do it today, friend to a friend. You need to do it. Protect yourself and your family. Back to this. Americans are done with COVID is the headline for today. New Jersey governor, where did I leave off here? His remarks come after New Jersey officials earlier Monday lifted the state mask mandate for schools. Governors of Delaware, Oregon have also made announcements on Monday about relaxing mask mandates at the end of March. Again, for some weird reason, I don't know why we're waiting for this arbitrary date to relax mask mandates. Just do it today. We all know. And California officials said that the state's universal mask mandate indoor Publix would be lifted next week. Oh, that's weird. I thought they were lifted when Gavin was at the NFC Championship game a week ago. Because he wasn't wearing a mask indoors. Neither was Eric Garcetti, London Breed, Magic Johnson was there. I thought it was already done, but I guess California still has a mask mandate. But I wanted to get to this. Jake Tapper on CNN asked the governor of New Jersey a pretty pointed question. Let me play this question in this clip, and then we'll react on the other side. Watch this.
As you know, most states do not have mask mandates for schools. Have you seen evidence that these mask mandates have been necessary, that the spread and mortality rates in states where they didn't have mask mandates were far worse than in places where they did have mask mandates like New Jersey?
Yeah, I mean, New Jersey is clearly the place I know the best, and God bless our precious kids no matter where they are. Please, God, they stay healthy and stay alive. There's no question that masking in our schools since the beginning of the school year has been a very smart public health step. I think we've had just over 2,600 cases of students with COVID positive since the beginning of the school year. That's out of 1.4 million kids.
Yeah, but have you seen data that definitively proves that these mask mandates have worked? I mean, the numbers you just presented are impressive, but are they different from the numbers in states where they didn't have mask mandates?
Yeah, again, I know Jersey, Jake, the best, but I'm highly confident, and I'm sure our health officials could say it definitively. There's no question they've worked. There's no question getting vaccinated, getting boosted, and wearing masks indoors have all been positive public health steps compared to the absence of any of those things in the alternative.
So that was Jake Tapper pressing the governor of New Jersey, saying, hey, dude, do you have any evidence that these things worked or at least made anything better? I want to bring up this comment from Richard. Richard said, they're following the same science as us, correct? So stop the mask mandates because Johns Hopkins said masks and lockdowns did not do anything to stop COVID. Did nothing to stop COVID. Yeah, that's exactly correct. We've been talking about that for the last week since that Johns Hopkins report came out last Monday. And it also revealed that they said that from the beginning, but still we tried it. So Jake Tapper is sitting there asking the governor of New Jersey, hey, dude, do you have any evidence to show that these actually helped? These mask mandates actually helped kids not get COVID. Excuse me. Then the governor throws out some ridiculous numbers that if you think about it for like a second or can do like a second of Googling, he says there's 1.4 million students in New Jersey and only 2,600 of them have tested positive for COVID since the beginning of the school year. There's no way that's accurate. A simple Google proved that's not even close to true. Maybe he was saying 26,000. Maybe he was saying 260,000 and just messed up the numbers in his head. But that's not even close to accurate. So given the fact that we don't entirely know where he's getting his numbers from and to get back to the main point of did this work at all? We pulled the numbers for ourselves. Shows that no, they didn't. Compared to New Jersey, compared to several of the other states that have no indoor mask mandates and no mask mandates for kids in schools, the numbers were not drastically different to clearly show that mask mandates and vaccine mandates worked. if we're getting back to the main point that Jake Tapper was making, do you have any evidence to prove that these are working? No, they don't. On top of that, we also found that in New Jersey, 2 out of 3 kids have gotten the COVID shot. So a majority of kids, an overwhelming majority of kids, I think it's almost 70% of kids in New Jersey haven't had the COVID shot. So mask mandates, there's no real evidence that the governor could prove that those actually helped. And then he points to the people getting the vaccine. No evidence there either. Again, the governor saying, well, people getting the COVID shot. The overwhelming majority of kids in New Jersey do not have the COVID shot. So where is this actual evidence that mask mandates actually worked? Pretty much everybody else, including Johns Hopkins, including comparing the data just for ourselves, shows that, they didn't really do much, if anything, at all. But again, Democrats are going to try and hold on. People like Governor Murphy and Governor Newsom are going to try and make people forget about the COVID tyranny, especially with the upcoming midterms. I wanted to get to this. This is one of my favorites. Happens to be in the state that I live in, the state of California. A guy named Ted Lieu is a congressman. He is he's a silly guy. He's a silly guy. That's all I'll say about Congressman Ted. But this is from Governor Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom instituted a statewide mask mandate on December 15th, set to expire for January 15th. Before January 15th, he extended it to February 15th. And then February 3rd-ish, I don't know, what was last Sunday? No, like January 30th or something like that. Then, about a week and a half ago, he was seen at a football game with no mask. Even though he instated a mask mandate, the county he was in had a mask mandate, and the city he was in had a mask mandate. Governor Gavin Newsom did not wear a mask in the NFC Championship game, which also, interestingly enough, was the most expensive NFL football game outside the Super Bowl in the history of the league. So there's that for your hoity-toity Gavin Newsom. But finally, the state said yesterday that California is going to actually let the mask mandate expire in February. This month, next week. So February 15th, the California mask mandate will officially expire. Hooray, said everyone who is paying attention to that, which is almost 0 people that I know of. But I thought this was interesting. Ted Lieu, the congressman from California, look, this is hilarious. I know there's a couple thousand you watch, and I'm seeing it on the screen. Click the little like button. I would really appreciate it. And click the little share button, because this is hilarious. I don't even know if you call it hypocrisy. I think you just call it maybe ineptitude, but maybe just, I think these people are so dumb they'll believe anything. This is a tweet from January 6th, I believe, from Congressman Ted Lieu. Nothing has shifted. The goals remain the same. Folks should get vaccinated and wear masks indoors in a public setting. Drew Holden pointed out that California's 7-day death average when Lieu was recently urging masks was 60. So today, he applauds the governor for leading the way. Well, let me get to that. So Ted Lieu says nothing has shifted. The goals remain the same. Folks should get vaccinated and wear a mask indoors in public settings. Should wear a mask in indoor public settings. He said that on January 6th. At the time, the 7-day rolling average for California deaths was 60. Now let's get to what Ted Lieu said yesterday. See if we can get this pulled up. Here we go. We'll make it big. We'll read it once. Democrats, like Gavin Newsom, are leading the way in returning America safely back to normal again. Ted Lieu, Congressman D. California, said Democrats like Gavin Newsom are leading the way in returning America safely back to normal again. Here's the interesting thing. He tweeted that yesterday, and California's 7-day rolling death average is 186. So 3 times as many as when he tweeted a month ago saying you have to wear a mask in indoor public settings. I don't know if this is incompetence or if it's just political pandering. I don't know what it is, Mr. Liu. Would you mind letting me know? I'd love to have you on the show. And if you're listening, thanks for doing so. But again, the hypocrisy coming out of all sides of this COVID debate. Let me see if we can get to any of these comments. Mindy says, none of the Dems are leading America. I would happen to agree. It's a false security. Masks, yeah. Stop mandatory vaccinations. Well, we'll assume masks are false security because those clearly don't work. If you're watching this, maybe you disagree. If you're of a certain age, it's probably smart to get the COVID shot. There, I said it. I've been saying it this entire time. This is not an anti-vaccine show. It's not an anti-COVID shot show. It's an anti-mandate show. If you're young and healthy, I can see why you wouldn't want to get it. But if you're like 60, 70 years old, you should probably get the COVID shot. So I'm not sure what that comment was insinuating, but I would agree that mask mandates are just safety theater at this point. And it's not doing anybody any good. I want to get to this. This is interesting to say the least, how the media and the Canadian government is responding to the Freedom Convoy. Again, more of a COVID issue. Truckers were required to quarantine if they crossed the Canadian border without having had the COVID shot. So there's that. Canadian officials say that 90% of truckers have the COVID shot. I don't believe that number for a second. I don't know if you know any truckers, but they don't seem like the type of people that would willy-nilly go for mandates, especially how many of them are protesting in the capital of Canada. So there's that. So I want to play this clip from Justin Trudeau yesterday in which he says some interesting things. And then there's a clip from MSNBC that you can't miss because they're now throwing around an age-old term that you've been hearing for a long time now, and now everybody is just rolling their eyes at. So I want to play those clips, but before I get to that, I got to tell you one more time about inflation. Inflation is through the roof, and it's not just here, it's everywhere. If you have your money overseas, it's not safe there either. Inflation is robbing your savings. It was at 7% last year, and it was at a 40-year high. The last person who had to deal with this is Ronald Reagan, who said that inflation is just like a mugger in the middle of the night. It'll take your money and not feel a thing about it. How do you protect yourself? Gold, 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 gold. Buy gold, sonny. That guy was right. You need to buy gold. You need to invest in gold. If you have an IRA, if you have a 401k, you can roll it into a gold-backed IRA. Buying gold and investing in gold doesn't necessarily mean getting a truck full of gold, backing it up to your backyard, digging a hole and burying it there, although you can do that, and our friends at Birch Gold can help you do that. But also, if you have an existing retirement plan or a conventional retirement plan, you can get your money into a gold-backed IRA to help protect your savings and protect your family's financial future. Birch Gold is an A-plus rated Better Business Bureau company and has served thousands of people, helping them to protect themselves against inflation. You can get a free, no obligation, no nothing kit by texting JOBOB to 989898. That's Jobob to 989898. And our friends at Birch Gold will send you everything you need to know about protecting your financial future and protecting yourself against inflation. That's JOBOB to 989898. That's Jobob to 989898. Protect yourself against gold today. This is what Justin Trudeau said the other day regarding this. This is fun. It's fun for me to talk about. It's not fun if you're in Canada protesting some ridiculous mandates and it's freezing there and all that sort of stuff. Watch this clip from Mr. Trudeau in Parliament, I guess. I'm not sure what they call those things up there. I'm not a Canadian.
Individuals are trying to blockade our economy, our democracy, and our fellow citizens daily lives. It has to stop.
Justin Trudeau saying there, individuals are trying to block our democracy. Okay, I feel like we should talk about some of the lefty arguments that are going to be coming our way with this, because of course people are going to say, well, when Black Lives Matter was blocking freeways, you guys were up in arms about it. And that's true. So I don't want to sound like a hypocrite and say that, well, it's fine when my side does it, but not fine when your side does it. So I feel like we got to address that. I would start first by saying that things that actually affect people day to day, statistically speaking, the vaccine mandates in Canada and in the United States are drastically more effective to a broader scope of people's everyday lives than what the Black Lives Matter movement was trying to accomplish. Remember, when people were blocking freeways, burning down structures, all of that sort of stuff, rioting in the streets, and peacefully protesting, there were also peaceful protests too. We're not going to pretend that that didn't happen. But when people were blocking freeways and doing a bunch of the stuff that average communities were upset about, they were protesting to stop, I believe the number was 20 deaths a year. Again, that's terrible. But the average person protesting thought that police officers killed over 1,000 unarmed black men every single year. That number was closer to 20. And also didn't take into consideration all of the other variables and what constitutes as unarmed. So when you talk about protesting something and causing a ruckus, is there some sort of argument to be made that, well, you guys were upset when they were doing that? Yeah, there is. But I would argue back saying that, well, the vaccine mandates affect a much broader scope of people. Not to say that black people getting shot doesn't matter. That's not what I'm trying to say. That is not the argument I'm making. But when the reality of the situation is that statistically speaking, the protests that were blocking freeways for Black Lives Matter were doing so based on statistics that were much exponentially higher than what the protesters thought, while the vaccine mandate protests affect millions of people and have an effect on everyday life, inflation, how your dollar is doing. Everyday kitchen table issues is what this is affecting. So there's that component. On top of the other component that more than a couple of the BLM protests turned into riots and people were burning down buildings in the streets and getting out of control. That has not been the case with this. Is it causing havoc in Ottawa? Yeah, it is. But they're not the same thing. Also, listen to what MSNBC said about this. Listen to the word this anchor uses.
We've heard it called a nationwide insurrection. It sounds like, you're talking about closed streets in the center of town there. It sounds like it's causing quite a bit of havoc, not just in that city, but across the country.
Yeah, so the clip was just from our police chief here in Ottawa, Peter Slowly, and he said that the Ottawa police is overwhelmed, that they do not have the resources able to deal with what he is calling a siege and an occupation.
A siege and an occupation as well as an insurrection. I'm a big language person. I think the way we use language and the way we use words is indicative of the culture that we're occupying. I don't think those words should be used lightly. An occupation into the Canadian capital? Occupation sounds more military-esque, and I think it's been used, it's been used as a military, it's been used as military verbiage since forever. Napoleon occupied pretty much all of Europe. The Ottawa truckers are protesting in the capital. Let's not conflate those two things, because then we get into dangerous territory. What happens if Vladimir Putin says, well, we're just protesting throughout Ukraine? Now, occupied and protests are very different things. We can't conflate those two terms and think that everything's going to work out fine and dandy. Also, they called it an insurrection. Holy cow, is everything an insurrection nowadays? If you protest the government and the way it's operating nowadays, is it just called an insurrection? Look, I think the words that we use matter and are important. But the fact that people are willing to throw out really harsh terms when you think about it, at the drop of a hat is scary. Because like I said, words mean something. The way you use words and the context in which you use them means something. And if words that have a much heavier, have a lot more heft, get used in trivial manners, it's not going to lead us to a good place. Like I said, if you conflate occupation with protest, peaceful, I'll say, where does that stop? What if China says, oh, we're going on a protest through Taiwan? Vladimir Putin says we're going on a protest through Ukraine. A bunch of your different African countries where leaders are taking each other over constantly. Oh, we'll just call it a protest because the media is calling it a protest, or they're saying it's a protest, and this is now conflated with occupation and insurrection. All of those are the same thing. When all of those words become the same thing, that's when we have a big problem as Americans. Words matter. And the way we use them is a telling sign of where we'll be in the next couple of years. That's that. All right. That's going to do it for us today. Hey, there's a lot of you tuning on. If you haven't already, click the little like button, click the little share button. People can watch this and know that America and the country and the world is done with COVID, according to pretty much every poll out there and the Washington Post over the weekend. But that's that. We will see you tomorrow. A lot of great stuff happening. I want to get to some Olympics stuff, just kind of how it's being covered and all that sort of stuff. In addition to that, let's see, tomorrow we're going to be on a little bit earlier because we got to do a bunch of other stuff. So we're moving to that 7 o'clock time slot on the Pacific Coast, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll be here about an hour earlier, 45 minutes earlier than we generally are. Also, today in the evening, you can check me out on OAN In Focus with Stephanie Hamill. We'll be doing a segment there talking about Joe Rogan and a bunch of different things over on that platform. We'll be back here tomorrow in the Denji bunker. Then tomorrow after that, we'll be in Arizona. A lot of stuff going on. Really appreciate you sticking around, hanging with me through all that stuff. If you haven't already, click the follow button on anywhere you're watching this show. If you're watching on Facebook, click the little like button, the follow button, the page button, the Twitter, same thing, Instagram, same thing. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of those social media platforms, Jobob, and you can find me pretty much anywhere. That's going to do it for us today. We will see you tomorrow, same different time, same place, about 45 minutes early. We'll see you then. God bless America.